Hey guys, you're watching Daniel and Gian talk, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. I mean, something we haven't done in a long time, but we're going to do a review. And we're not just
Yeah.
doing any kind of review. We are doing a review of a Canadian television show starring comedian extraordinaire Russell Peters. My dad actually watched this. I hadn't seen my parents for a few months, and I went up to visit. And my dad was like, "Hey, I watched this show called The Indian Detective. I thought it was pretty funny, and you should check it out." So while I was at the house, I watched it with my wife, and yeah, it was pretty funny. But he didn't seem to see the difference that this was actually a Canadian production starring a Canadian of Indian descent. Format wise, it definitely followed the BBC style of
For sure.
television shows.
Four episodes.
This type of show in the U.S. would definitely be 30 minutes because it's comedic. There's a little bit of drama to it, like there's some serious stuff happening, but because it's a bit lighter, I mean, drug dealers killing people and whatnot,
Right.
lighter. But yeah, in the U.S. you would probably see this as a 30-minute type show. I mean, you watch it after me, so your eyes are a little fresher than mine. What did you think?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we watched it like a month and a half ago, so it's pretty interesting to talk about what I actually remember. And one of the things that I do remember saying to myself is I wish this were a movie. Because even though it was only 4 episodes, I still felt it was like too long and kind of overstated welcome in some points because of the long length of the episodes, where it kind of felt like things were dragging on and the jokes weren't coming in consistent. Like, it wasn't consistent. I don't know, I couldn't nail the tone of the show. I mean, I knew it was a comedy, so I know tonally it was supposed to be funny, like everything was supposed to be funny, but also I couldn't nail down what it was supposed to be. The callbacks to like him in the interrogation room never got really resolved or even set up or anything. He's always talking to somebody kind of just to bridge the narrative along because of whatever reason, a production issue, or that's how it's actually scripted. But I did remember just liking what was going on in the world, the characters, the situations that they were getting themselves into, the dynamics of like this Indian police officer from Canada who's not even really Indian, quote unquote, by what you would accept as a real Indian or not, coming into this other country and kind of like dipping their toes and maybe not being the best cop in Canada, but being a pretty good cop in India, that type of dynamic. Because as we've all seen, if you've ever seen an Indian movie that involves cops, you know that they're terrible at their job. I've yet to see like one good cop movie, unless it's Salman Khan being, Salman Khan.
Right.
which, I mean, you and I have seen plenty of police officer photos, and not a lot of people look like that. They kind of look like me, a little pudgy. They look like Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons, is a better way to put it. Definitely
They act a lot like them too.
Yeah. I was surprised to see William Shatner in it, and Anupam Kher was a nice addition as the father. I like that bit, but because I think he had the best moments. Hiding cancer. I think that was one of the moments. Didn't he hide cancer or something like that from him? Or he pretended it was cancer. He pretended it was cancer, and he just had gas. It was some gag like that. Like, he pulled it off.
He pretended it was gas, but I guess he had some sort of heart condition.
Something like that. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. My dad rewatched it. We watched it together. I watched it with my wife. So it was like, it was cool in that respect, because it wasn't challenging. There was nothing complicated about it. I think they filmed in India. I'm assuming they did. Cause
yeah, they did.
You can't get that landscape in Canada for sure.
You definitely couldn't build it, and it'd just be so expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So that was cool. Like, I liked them shooting on location, but I was like, I don't recognize any of these actors. And then when I do a little bit of snooping, I look up and like they're either Canadian, like the bad guy in the series is from Canada, or they're from South Africa. So it was like this like Canadian South African type production. Like the love interest, the super hot chick, she's South African. A lot of the guys playing the cops are South African.
I didn't know
so
that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that was a little, you got so much local talent. Maybe it was just a production thing. It was just easier, or a contractual thing. Who knows? We don't really, we've never really delved into the show business aspect of the Indian film industry.
I mean,
so we don't
even Extraction, the Netflix movie. I don't know if you ever saw it. Same thing. I mean, they weren't South African, but there were really not any recognizable Indian players. I mean, even to the point where like some of the accents were wrong. I mean, some people were telling me that like, oh, this person doesn't talk like such and such from this part of India, and just because they were that's kind of a Netflix production, right? It's like it could just be as simple as Netflix is like, look, this is your budget, and if Hrithik Roshan cost twice the budget of the whole film, well, we're not going to give it to you. So
this is true.
You better find some good actors.
Especially because of who the movie was marketed to.
Right.
Like, Hrithik Roshan getting paid his salary on an American production is a waste of money because no one in the States gives a fuck about him.
Unfortunately.
I'm not saying that's an insult to him, but I'm just saying, like,
they don't even know who he is.
Yeah, exactly. The big Indian star, if you were to pay them the salary they commanded for an Indian film, it would just be throwing money down the toilet. It would just basically lighting it on fire because
unless it was a Shah Rukh Khan and it was something that was marketed towards that part of the world as opposed to America, like it.
Right.
Like
exactly.
I didn't see Tenet, but if it was like Denzel Washington's son and then Shah Rukh Khan is like the co-detective, like people are gonna go watch that movie. You know what I mean? That might be worth the investment. Not Americans, they're not going to know who the hell this guy is, but enough of the world are going to know.
But that would be kind of like what China does with the co-productions and stuff, where they'll hire an American star to be in their film. It'd be something like that.
I agree.
Where there's Chinese money getting put up.
I agree.
I mean, to be honest, it's called The Indian Detective because Russell Peters is the star, and it takes place in India. But the titles that the cops have in Canada are completely different than the ones that you get down here in the States.
Right.
So like their
ranks
like
and all that stuff.
Yeah, he's like chancellor or bachelor, these weird, like really classic old English sounding names. So I don't know what level of cop he was, if he was just a beat cop,
I think he was a detective.
No, he wasn't a detective. I know that much.
No, in India.
In India, they called him a detective because his dad was lying to everybody that he was a detective.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. He was a detective.
Yeah.
I think he was just a normal patrol, like a border patrol agent. I think that's what his position was, like a border patrol type thing. Because I remember the beginning of the show starting at the border. Like he tried to stop some guy who wasn't the right guy, and then he ended up being the right guy later on as the story develops, and then.
Yeah, so there was a Canadian mobster, a Toronto mobster.
I think played by the same guy too, because I think they look the same. Like the two people looked.
Oh no, he played himself. He played twins.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah. Guy. No, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the mobster, the informant. So the informant went and dropped some information to him because he knew there was crooked cops inside the system. So he tries to get this bust, but somebody like dropped a dime and gave the guys a heads up, so he didn't find any drugs in
at the very beginning of the show. Yeah.
Right, but he wrote down the symbol,
and then saw it later.
Somebody else saw the symbol. Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah, the cop, the girl cop that he thought he was gonna smash, like the white girl cop, something like that. Like he was with he thought he was with that girl. I don't know. It's like I said at the beginning when we started talking about it. I enjoy what I watched. It was over in 3.5, 4 hours, whatever it was. I finished it in one night. I just wish it was a movie because I felt like if you make it smaller, those jokes are going to come closer together and it's just going to be just outrageous and just funny. And, all of these events were fine. It's just being compressed down would have been better, I feel like.
But how much of that is also you watching a 6-hour binge?
Maybe. Maybe that's true. Maybe once a week this would have been okay. But it's been a long time since I've done that. I mean, it's kind of hard to not. Like I said, it's not that I didn't like what I watched. It's just I thought it was too much for what it was. It's too long for not enough like substance, I guess.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I laughed. I thought some moments were funny, definitely. Especially the father-son dynamic was personally my favorite.
It was good. That felt the most genuine, even though they didn't look like each other at all.
No. He definitely looked like he was adopted from Canada or something.
Right.
But it works. But whatever, you believe it. And then visually it was okay. I thought some things were a little flat, like some things were shot a little weird. It definitely felt like it's. I don't want to criticize people because they made the show, but at the same time, it did feel like some
You
things
could
were
see
rushed.
you could see the budget at times for sure.
Yes,
I mean,
that's
I
what I
think
meant.
that's the
Yeah.
best way of putting it. You could see the budget, like you could see, and I think that's also one of those things. Like I forgive half-hour TV shows, and they're made to be like shot quickly because a
Right.
lot of these things are, you shoot it in a week and then you're cutting that episode that week. It's not.
Yep.
You don't have time to like develop what's going on in that 30 minutes.
You did all your developing in
this
the
is
writing room.
exactly. So like your sets are going to get what they get because you have a finite amount of time to film stuff. But
My final question to you is, if there's a season 2, would you watch it?
yeah, definitely. I definitely
Well,
would.
that's
Especially if
that's
I
all
was
that, that's
in
all
there
that really
with my-
matters then.
with my dad.
Yeah.
So.
See, so that could be your guys' show. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If
Right.
Because I would definitely check out the first episode, because if they did bring it back, they'd have to up the stakes. So if they're gonna up the stakes, something interesting has to happen. So I'd definitely give it a
Right.
shot, and I think people should try it out if they have that time. They like Russell Peters, something a little more lighthearted.
Did you guys watch this show? Or did you even hear this show? Let us know in the comment section what you thought if you did see it or if you're interested in watching it now. And, let's continue the discussion in that place. Any final thoughts, Daniel?
The next review will be Ashoka, and so if you have any questions for either of us to ask about the film from a production standpoint or acting or whatever it might be, any of the above, please let us know in the comments below, and then we'll address those in the review. I watched it already. I've been obsessed with history lately, a lot of ancient history, and so when I heard about a man who fought and killed over 300,000 people in one battle, who ended up becoming a Buddhist, in a completely unrelated. I was literally reading about like Alexander or something, and then they brought his name up, and I'm like, oh, this is the movie with SRK. I need to watch it. So anyway, yeah, that's the next review. Should be
All right,
interesting.
and we'll see you on the next one, guys.